How much money do you make per month?
Yeah, about 15 to 18,000 a month.
You've seen it right. Just as Mountain is officially back. This is season 2 of SMA Podcast, and have a great time watching it.
Hello, Justice. Thank you very much for having me on the podcast here. It's a pleasure. And hello,
Oh,
everybody. My name's Caleb.
I would like to tell you that this is going to be a three-part podcast. So it's one episode, but three parts. And the first part is about your story. So, first of all, I would like to ask you, how did you end up at the point of starting an agency? What led you to it? What other side hustles did you try? And also, how old are you?
Yeah, of course. So I'm 25. I founded Taurify about 2 years ago, and there was a lot of different things that I tried. I have been trying to do this basically since not the agency, but just trying to build something since I was about 16 years old for the most part. Um, Started off kind of doing a lot of um, buying and selling, flipping, reselling, stuff like that. I had an Amazon store for a while. I ran that for
Nice.
about a year. Um, that didn't end up working out. I ended up getting kicked off Amazon. There's a couple other things I tried to do Shopify, tried to be like to run a YouTube channel. I tried to do a lot of different stuff. But eventually I ended up at the agency. And I've also got a couple real estate investments as well.
Okay, I see. Pretty compelling story. So, would you mind giving me a realistic timeline of your income in agency space? So, because everybody in this niche talks about making 10K in the first 90 days or in the first 30 days, you know. So, I just want you to give the people the realistic timeline of making money and stuff like that.
Yeah, so honestly, I was definitely a late bloomer. Like there are people that you know, it kind of gives me almost like some imposter syndrome, being on podcasts, being on things like this. 'Cause I've started to do a few and like people will like ask me questions and I don't feel like I'm qualified to answer them. Like I still have no idea what I'm doing most of the time. Um, like I'm still always just trying to figure it out. But realistically, it took me like pretty much exactly a year. After like the first year, I basically started at the beginning of January, and
Mm-hmm.
then end of December, I hit like 9,700 uh, in December. Um, and then after that, it like I lost a couple clients, and then it went down, and then it went back up to like 15. Um, Realistically, probably between like a year and a year and a half.
Okay,
Um,
so, okay.
the most part, the whole time I've been running it full time. But like even then, like because it's such a lean model, like most of it's all profit.
Okay. And moving on from that, so how did you start? What niche did you start with? How did it go? Can you tell me a bit about getting your first clients?
Yeah, so I kind of did niche hop for a while. I was doing for the most part local lead gen Facebook ads. I was, running Facebook ads for local businesses. And my I did a lot of cold outreach in the beginning, a lot of various types of cold outreach. Um DMs, emails, uh submitting like Upwork and Indeed like
How
proposals
much
to
how
people.
much output did you do? Like how much outreach
I had to
in
do about
total?
3,000 to get my
Could
first
you
client.
could you repeat that?
I had to do 3,500 outreaches to get my first client. Most of that was a combination between email and DM. And then there was like a few other things in there. But for the most part, I had to send about 1,500 emails, 1,500 DMs, and
Whoa.
then a couple other things to get my first one, which
Okay,
is a
and
lot.
how did you pick your first niche? Because there's so much outreach, but you know, how did you pick your first niche?
Yeah, so my first ever client was an automotive detailer.
Okay.
Based on name's Danny, he's phenomenal. He's still with me to this day. Um, so after the reason I chose that industry was because I grew up in like the Detroit area of Michigan, which for those of you who don't know is where like General Motors, Chrysler, Ford, all those companies were like headquarters. So it's the Motor City. So like my dad worked for GM. Everybody I knew was like somehow involved in the car industry. So I felt that that was an industry that I could at least like hold my own in. Like I understood it. I could, talk shop, if you will, to those people. Like, they're my people kind of. So I understood that. So I was like, all right, this is an industry that I understand. So that's why I started off there. I don't really work in that industry anymore. For the most part, I work in like home renovation, painting, stuff like that. Those are, in my opinion, a little bit better clients for a couple of reasons, but that's who I'm mostly with now. But that's why I originally kind of started off in that industry. And then from there, I just sort of followed what worked. Like, who did I like working with? Who did I, so my second client ever was a friend of mine who he saw what I was doing. He saw some of the success I was having, and he was uh, trusting enough to give my services a shot. It ended up working out really well for him. And what I did is I made videos. He ran a painting company.
Okay.
I made videos like I run Facebook ads for a painting company. Literally just that. I talked about it, showed my stuff, put it up on YouTube, used some of those content skills that I already had, put it up on YouTube, tried to provide value to people, and people liked it. And then I started getting people asking me to do it for them. And then that's kind of how I continued on this process.
Okay, okay. And what about client retention? So, how did you go about that? Like, did you lose a lot of clients at the beginning? And what
Yeah.
mistakes did you make?
Yeah. So, as I am still struggling with client retention. That is a huge topic right now internally that we're trying to solve. Um, right now, we sign on about 3 to 5 a month, but we'll lose like 2 to 3 a month. Um, our average client retention is only 3 months, which is not good, and I am super not happy with that. Um, there's and like again, this is really like one of the number one things we're trying to fix. So I'm kind of glad you brought that up because like even at this level, like I still trying to figure this out. Um, client retention comes down to a couple things.
Okay,
One, or granted, I'm no $100,000 a month agency, but this is what I see at this point. Um, communication. Constantly communicating with them. There's issues, making sure they get solved, making sure they feel better, making sure they feel good, um, fixing that stuff up. That's really important. Um, if you need, which is this is what we're doing, getting somebody to help you with that. So like a client success manager. That's one of the things we're going to be implementing soon. Because at this point we've got about 20 clients, and I can only do so much. Like I'm starting to get slow responding to emails, responding to Slack messages and stuff like that. Um, there's somebody called named John Danes who um he has said this to me. Well, it was like a course. He said it and it really resonated with me. It was you should build your business how you would serve 100 clients. So put the systems in place, put the people in place so that you can manage 100 clients. Yeah, myself, I could never do that. I could never deal with 100 people blowing up my build systems, build a team. You serve one person, you would serve. So once you kind of get to that middle range of like, 20, that's when some of those problems start to arise. And you start to notice like, oh, hey, like I should have figured this out before. So that's another thing. We want to have like basically like a dedicated rep that makes sure that those clients are happy. Um, another thing too is going to be providing, or this is at least another thing that we're doing to help increase that retention, providing clients with resources and helping them manage the leads as much as possible.
what do you mean by
Because
that?
as an agent, yeah, so I'll explain.
Okay,
So as a lead generation agency, once the leads come in, we can only do so much. Um, you are partnered with the business owner to help make sure they get the most or the best results possible. You can generate phenomenal leads, but if the business owner doesn't or the salesperson doesn't manage them properly, like let's say for example, you run a home renovation company, I bring you 10 leads a day, and you don't call them in time, or you don't, or you call them 3 days later, or maybe you text them once and then forget about it. If the leads aren't managed properly, you're not going to get any money out of them. You're not going to be happy. Like clients aren't just going to automatically like sign deals with you and use your service because they became a lead. They need to still be convinced, and the leads still need to be managed properly. And there's only so much that we can do there. So it's teaching the client how to use the system, how to use your CRM, how to use all this stuff, setting up automations so that they don't have to do things, um, and making sure they know what to do and making sure they can handle the leads properly. Because truthfully, even if the leads are good or bad, if they're not closing deals, they're not going to be happy, regardless of how good the leads are. Um, let me give you an example here, like an
Okay.
action, so we we had a client who, in the first 6 weeks, he was like he painted houses. In the first 6 weeks, we got him a bunch of leads. He went out and gave 20 estimates. So he went to their house, talked to them, gave them a quote 20 times, but he didn't close a single deal. And he came back to us and he said, "Hey, your ads don't work. I'm not closing deals." Well, but the truth is that the ads do work. Like people are interested. You're at their house, you're talking to them. They're obviously interested enough to get you to come there. Um, but the problem was is that like in the sale, he was struggling. There's a lot of things. It could be his sales skills. It could be, um, was he showing up on time? Was he being presentable? Uh, what were his prices like? Like it's kind of a common struggle with agencies. You only have so much control. You can't, you really can't close the deals for
Yeah.
them.
Yeah. Okay.
You
So
can't.
can I ask you a follow-up question real quick? So basically, you have named all these problems. So do you provide some kind of training to them? Do you like work with them one-on-one? Do you automate the process? How do you solve this problem in your own agency?
Yeah. So, right now, one of the things that we did add is we used to just give them leads and say, "Hey, here are your leads. Good luck."
Okay.
Um, we don't charge extra. They get a CRM, they get a bunch of automations, and they get like a scheduling software so that some of those leads can book in their own appointment and stuff. That's one of the things that we do. Um, and then what we're currently implementing is more training videos, more things like that. We do offer all of our clients, we offer free consulting, as many as they want. They can book as many consulting sessions as they like. Um, we can kind of help them out there. Um, but yeah, so it's give the clients as many resources as possible and help them out as much as possible to close that deal. Sometimes you got to be stern with them. You got to tell them what to do. There was a guy who was complaining about not closing deals, and we I told him, I was like, "Man, you're not using any of the tools we gave you. You're not using the CRM, you're not tracking what's going on. Like if you're not tracking what's going on, if you're not tracking your leads, they're useless. Like I don't even have any data to like go off of because I can't even look at what's going on." So you do really have to tell them what to do sometimes, and lead them in the right direction.
Okay.
This same person that I'm kind of referencing, they also they quoted all their jobs over text, and I told them, I was like, "Hey, you're asking for a few $1,000s. I would probably recommend that you go to their house, meet them in person, shake their hand, get to know them a little bit, build rapport, and then ask for $5,000, $10,000 for this job. Um, it'll make them feel a lot better, and I'm pretty sure that your closing rate will be higher." And he thought it was a waste of time. He didn't agree with me. Um, and he didn't get any results. So, like, you can lead you can lead them um, by strongly encourage giving them as many tools as possible. But yeah, some clients, not all clients are going to stay forever, unfortunately.
Yeah, okay. And talking about those tools. So what are the exact softwares, if it's okay to ask, which you use for automation, CRM, and scheduling? You have mentioned those three. So what do you use personally?
Yeah, so everything is through Go High Level. Um,
Okay.
the scheduling, CRM, automations, all that's in Go High Level.
And I saw in your YouTube video that you were talking about Zappler, if I'm not mistaken, about text
Yes,
automations. Do you use that too to
yes.
this day?
So, what we used to do is we used to create the leads in Facebook and then send them to our clients in Zapier, like a text message.
Okay.
Um, uh, but right now we do everything in Go High Level, and then through Go High Level they'll get a text message. Like we have like a build out that's like a standard build out for all of our clients that we start off with and then make any tweaks we need. Um, but Zapier, we still do keep it on file. We still do use it sometimes for like random situations.
Mm-hmm.
Um, uh, about last week, there was a client who he had a CRM that he's been using for like 9 years. I'm not going to make him switch over. If they have a system that's working, we can just hook the ads up to that system. So we used Zapier to just hook it up real quick. But other than Go High Level and Zapier, I mean, I use personally like Calendly for some of my stuff, but for the most part, most of it's done through Go High Level. Um, I we try to keep it as simple as possible, um, especially like everybody tells me, and from what everything I can see here, in those early days, like 0 to 50K a month, um, and it's really about keeping it simple, you know, streamline stuff, keep it simple. Um, you don't need like 30 different softwares to get to that. I don't think.
Okay. And now, following up to the most important part, which a lot of people skip, is delivery of a service itself. So we talked about a lot about around what goes around, but I would like to ask you personally, how did you learn how to deliver, how to write good copies, create good ads, stuff like that, and also what advice would you give to the people who are beginning in this space with advertising creation?
Yeah, so I started off, I took a course on it. It was an educate course. Um, it was pretty good, but for the most part, you're never like really gonna learn until you do it. So it was my first client, the detailing client. I just looked up on YouTube how to run ads for an automotive detailer. I just copied what he did and then did that for my client. And from there, I started to learn like, okay, this is what's happening here and this isn't here. Like I started to understand what's going on.
Okay, I see. And also, I would like to ask about the team part. So, as I understand, you have a couple of employees, and when did you decide to add our team, our people to your agency and stuff like that? When did you decide to outsource? And also, how do you determine if we are high quality, fine high quality, stuff like that?
Yeah, so the first person I ever hired didn't end up working out. The second person, he's still with me to this day. Um, I guess so you always want to try and replace yourself, so that you can focus on more important things. You know, it's kind of your job to steer the ship. And if you're
Yeah.
caught up in all things, you can't steer the ship. You're gonna get distracted, you're gonna get all these things going on. So right now, how our process works is every time a new client comes on, I do all the onboarding, I do, the sales, and then or there's like a checklist we set up. I send that to our media buyer. He sets up the account, sets up the Go High Level, creates the ads, get them all targeted, do all that stuff. He builds everything. I check it over, send a review to the client, let them know, hey, this is what's going on, so on and so forth. Um, and then after that, um, the client will communicate with me. Maybe if there's an issue that needs to be fixed, or they want to change something, or they have a question, they'll talk to me, and I'll do that. Uh, I am hiring on somebody new as like a manager for service delivery. Their job is going to be client relations, talking to people, just solving those little issues, being the first point of contact so that I don't have clients hitting me up all day. Like, example, if the client says, "Hey, can you add a new question onto the form?" I don't need to do that. It takes like, 15 minutes, but it's just something simple that I shouldn't be doing. I can have somebody else do. Um, and you want somebody good who's like client facing, who can talk to people, um, and maybe answer some of those tough questions. But they that's kind of the next hire. I want to remove myself from the service delivery as much as possible. I'm still going to be there. I'm still okay solving problems, but I want to remove myself from service delivery as much as possible so that that part can kind of run itself without me. That's kind of the next big step. Um, it runs itself without me, sort of, but I still need to be there. Um, and I'd like to be there less. I'd like to just look at reports and dictate from there what's going on. Um, and then my job will be like 100% sales, 100% outreach, really kind of steer that ship. Because I'm the only one who's really bringing the needle forward at this point. Um, that will be the main step. Then from there, I would probably hire on some sort of an ops manager to help make sure that everything sort of between like does onboarding and stuff like that. Um, and then probably a sales rep. Um, we're not really at that level yet.
I understand. Okay, so you're really advanced, and but I would like to ask you a bit more beginner-oriented questions before we move on. So, okay, first of all, how to start without having reviews? So, if everybody keeps asking you for reviews when you try to sell your service, how do you overcome that? How did you do it yourself?
Um, so everybody is an expert at something, and
Okay.
you have to kind of that expertise. So, but like, let me like you kind of have to tell people how good you are. Um, even if you've never done it before, um, yeah, I'll admit it can be hard. Some people will ask for that stuff. Um, but just talk about the things that you like. Let's say, for example, you're part of a media buying mastermind group. Okay. Talk about all the resources you have, all the people you have connections with, some of the mentors that you have that are training you. Um, Still highlight the good things, even if you don't think you are, it'll still put you in a position of authority. You don't need to be a like level 10 because your client is probably like a level 1. If they're seeking advice, they're level 1 in experience. Let's say they don't know how to run ads or they don't know how to do copywriting or whatever your service is. If they're level 1 and you're level 3, you're still an expert to them. You still probably know way more than they do. So like it's just it's still your job to highlight your experiences, highlight your expertise, even though you might be brand new, you still have more expertise than they do.
Okay. So, next question following up. So, for example, did you finish? I'm sorry, maybe I interrupted you.
I That makes sense, right?
Yes, 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 yes. That does make sense. That's why I followed up. So, okay, next up, I would like to ask about onboarding. So, for example, a client agrees with a new agency owner to work. What are your steps for onboarding? Just general guidelines.
Yeah, so it's pretty simple. Um, we get on a call. Either
Mm-hmm.
I'll onboard them after the sales call if I have time, or book in a second onboarding call. Um, at that call, um, we gain access to their accounts. We talk about what they can expect, hook them up with everything, give them the rundown of who the team is and what like how we operate. Invite them to the Slack channel. It's important if you can to keep everybody in one place. Um, and then what else here? Basically just ask them like the questions where they target like the business questions. Where are you targeting? Who's your ideal customer? What services are like you really want to focus on? Um, And then at the end of the call, it's important to kind of set up expectations of what to expect. Like for example, I usually say something to the effect of like, okay, this whole thing takes us about a week to build everything. In a couple of days, you're going to get a Loom video from me walking you through how everything works. And from there, if you have any adjustments you'd like to make, that would be a great time to do that. Um, just say we're going to get to work and so on.
Okay, and about the payment part. So, do you work with like a fixed cost, or do you do like results-based payment of your services, like percentage of deals or something like that? How do you work?
Yeah, so it's usually just flat rate.
Flat rate, okay.
It's kind of lower flat rate. We've kind of changed it to it's between 500 and 1,000, usually depending on the client, and depending on like exactly what we're doing for them, some add-ons or something. Um, but to be honest, like I'm more so interested in the long term at this point in time. I'd rather have a client stay with us and be easy to work with than be to not stay with us and we charge them a huge one up front and then they just leave. I'd rather have the reoccurring revenue, even if they're a smaller client, at least right now. Um, and I think I got a little off track there. Can you repeat the question?
I was talking about payment. So do you also accept like a
Yeah.
percentage of your results or something like that? I was curious just how you do stuff.
Yeah, so I do not at the moment do any percentage of deals. The reason why is because all the deals are priced and quoted on their end. I can't see what's going on, so I
Yeah.
don't have a great way to be able to follow up and track that. There might be a way out there. I feel like I've heard of people talking about it before, but that's not like I know people talk about it, but truthfully, I don't know how they're tracking. Maybe I could find it out, but uh for the most part, it's just a flat rate, simple flat rate. And then I have had some like e-com clients who are and these are few and far between, but and I don't really shoot for these people, but if you sell stuff on your website, like that I can track how much revenue we're generating. We have done a base plus performance on those situations.
Mm-hmm.
For example, that we used to work with, and we did their ads for like all of Q4, so like all of Christmas time and like the holidays basically, which was their biggest, time obviously being a toy company. We did like $1,500 a month plus 5% of all the revenue we generate. Um, in an ideal world, I think that that's kind of like the best because your incentives are aligned. However, it's just a little challenging with um, generation because you don't see what's going on.
And do you write some kind of a legal agreement between you and the client when you onboard them? Also, I forgot to ask that.
Yeah, so we do have one, um, but to be honest, most of the time I just go for the invoice. Um,
I imagine so, but I would, you know, but you still
it-
sometimes draft it.
yeah,
Yeah, okay. And I'm going to also ask you a few random questions. So basically not related to expertise, but just your opinion.
yeah.
So first of all, are SMMA courses and gurus scammers or real heroes? Like, what do you think?
Um, so I don't think that, but I mean, granted, this is kind of a blanket statement. I don't think that they're scammers. No, I think that for the most part, buying knowledge like that has um is a great investment. I
Okay,
mean, be up to you what you do with the knowledge. Like for example, the first ever agency course I bought was like $1,500 a month. It was E-Man Gadget. I'm sorry, not a month. Just flat rate.
okay, okay.
It was called Grow Your Agency. This was like back in the day. Um, Spent $1,500, and that investment has made me over 100,000 at this point, based on the knowledge. I mean, um, the highest ROI I think I've ever had has been on education. So yeah, like it's definitely worth it. I have, just for kind of context, I have a degree in accounting and financing. Um, it's probably worth anywhere between like 60 to $80,000. I would argue that I have earned or learned way more about business from a handful of courses than I have through my whole college. So, long story short, I do not at all think that investing in your education from a course or a book or online or whatever, I don't think that's really ever a bad play. I mean, as you progress, you'll probably spend more and more. You don't need to spend 10,000 to get started. There's plenty of great resources out there in the SMMA space for $1,500, 2,000, 1,000, something like that. Um, I have even considered publishing like a course as well. I don't know if this is something I want to do. This was not my plan coming into this. I don't want to be that guy that's like, has Lamborghini and he's filming an ad that's like, oh, hey, if you just buy my course, you can have a Lambo too. I don't want to be that guy, but I have been asked by some people like if I provide one or if I could train them or something like that, and I don't really have an answer for that.
Okay,
Maybe at some point I'll do.
if somebody's watching this from the future, like from the 5 years from now.
Yeah, I don't know. It may be a resource that I provide at some time, but it'll be very specific. It'll be more like niche in what I do. Um, and but like that definitely is not the goal. Like the goal of all my content, the goal of everything that I do is like to prove to people, prove to clients that I can do good, that our company is good, show them the results that we've done, and also provide value to them. They can, if they want to do it themselves, they can do it themselves. That's great. Or if they want to just hire us to do it, we'll probably get better results, and they also won't have to worry about it, and they get all our software. Um, that comes with it as well.
Okay. And following up with a niche, so you mentioned your niche. As I understand, you work with home contractors, especially painters. And
That is correct.
what niches in general would you recommend for beginners, or not necessarily beginners, but what niches are out there like the best in your opinion? Because everybody nowadays talk about influencer marketing, all that stuff, and if everybody goes there, I imagine that maybe there's not so much competition in the more down to the ground like spaces, like for example, as you said, home renovation and stuff like that. So what would you recommend?
Um, okay, so a few rules. Um, One, I think your niche should make enough to be able to support you and be able to purchase your services. For example, in my industry, like painting and renovation, it is super common, even like just general home service. It is super common for one job to cost three, five, $10,000. So it's very reasonable for them to spend $1,000, $2,000 a month on advertising if one job brings them 10,000. Like I had a client that um, signed up with us in the first 6 weeks. He got a $12,000 job. That job alone pays for an entire year and more worth of advertising. So like it makes sense, because of the size of the stuff. Um, like for example, there was this one time where I met with a group of restaurant owners. They had like three different restaurants, and like their price per plate was like 20, $30. It's like there's not really a whole lot I can do with that. Like it's going to take a very long time for them to actually see an investment a return. Um, so basically they have to have enough money to afford your services. Um, and usually the larger the deals, kind of the better, um, relatively. What's another one? So if you're there are niches who are technologically advanced and there are niches that are not. My niche is not technologically advanced at all. Most of the people that I sign up with or that sign up with our services, they don't even have a Facebook account, like, or an Instagram account. Like we have to make them. So like just the fact that we're like putting them on Facebook and running like a few ads is that already brings them from zero to like five immediately. Um, if you are competing in an industry like ecom, for example, um, there's pros and cons here. Pros are probably a lot more technologically advanced. They probably have a lot of good things going for them. Their site works better. Maybe they're using something like Shopify that is easy to integrate with and stuff like that. And they can be easier to work with sometimes because uh, they know what you need and they kind of speak that language. So like for example, um, if you ask them like, hey, can you give me access to this, this, and that on the ads manager? They probably know how to do that. But if you're in an industry that doesn't use that stuff, they don't know how to do that. Um, so like working together can be a little bit easier in more technologically advanced industries, but also they might not need you. You need to be a lot smarter to succeed in like e-com or something like that. Like
Okay.
if you are new starting out, it's a lot easier to do that in an industry that doesn't have as much experience in whatever the thing you provide.
Okay. And also, Another question would be, you talked about a lot about framing yourself with clients. So basically telling them how to sell and stuff like that. And you come as a leading mm, like position in your relationship. But as I imagine, maybe for you it's not quite a problem, but for younger people out there, and when we need to deal with a person who's like 40 or 30 and stuff like that, maybe you have some psychological tricks, tips, or whatever on how to deal with those kinds of situations.
Um, I mean, honestly, like I like from zero to like 100,000 in my agency, I closed all those clients. I mean, I don't look old. I can't grow a beard. I had braces for most of was taught I tough, blue collar men, these services. Like you don't need to like yes, you can relate to them. I will say that most of the people that I get right now come from my content. So what I'm kind of getting at here is that if you frame your like before the call or during your first call, if you focus on like yeah, if you try to cold call a lawyer and you're 14 years old, he probably is not going to care. But if you provide value, provide a shitload of value to these people and prove your authority in the space, none of that matters. Like, so because most of the people that come into me have watched hours of my content, they already know me, they already trust me. I am in a position of authority, and I have also proved to them what we can do. Um, I never get that question. I've never had somebody say like, "Oh, like you're young," or "Oh, your company's like newer," or whatever. Um, Never really get those objections. So what I did, and when I was doing cold outreach, I did a two call close. The first call was a marketing review where I just gave them a review, gave them a bunch of suggestions, and then pitched a sales call. And then I tried to close them on the sales call. The very first call was just based on providing them with value. I would provide them with a shitload of value, and they would at the second call was so much easier because I gave them value. They trusted me after that.
Okay, good point. And one of the final questions would be a special message for the viewer on your end, like whatever you want.
Special message for the viewer. So this is a business. I mean, every business is, but like this is something that works only if you work it. Okay, there are going to be ups and downs. If you've ever heard of I encourage you to kind of look it up if you haven't. The emotional cycle of change. Okay, basically, it starts off whereas like you're really happy. You're like, oh, this is great. This is such a good business model, and then you have it's called informed pessimism, where you're like, oh man, this is a lot harder than I thought it was. And then you get down here into the valley of despair. This is when you're like, this sucks. Can't sign any clients. This is terrible. And down here is where most people quit. And they're like, oh, I should try drop shipping. That seems cool. Or I should try this or that. Most of these things work, but you have to push through them. You know, there are literally days where like I'm like, let's go. I'm so happy. I'm making money. This is great. I love my agency. There are days when I'm like, this sucks. I hate it. I want to quit. Like, obviously I never would, but like, there are days where once you're down here, most people will jump to a new thing and they're like, oh, and then they get down here and they're like, oh, this is hard. Maybe I need to try a new thing. Then you can look this up, the value to spare the graphs. Alex Hormozy, all those people talk about it. But
Okay.
basically, once you get into it, you realize, oh wow, this is actually a lot harder than I thought it was. But if you keep pushing forward through this valley of despair, that's when you get to informed optimism. I believe that's the stage name, where you're like, okay, well, I understand there's these challenges, but I can kind of see some of the solutions now. Um, and and then eventually you get to informed. I don't remember what it's called, but you get the idea.
Yeah.
Look it up. You have to go through this cycle of oh this is new and this is exciting, then you're like oh my gosh this is actually hard, wow this is terrible, okay I can see how this is works, oh wow I'm at the end here, this all makes sense, and then you're gonna go up and down, but like basically um you have to work through it. Everything is way harder than people make it sound. Um, on the internet, they're like, "Oh, you just have to buy this course," and then it's all fine and dandy. Don't get me wrong. Like as an agency, compared to a lot of other industries, it is a lot easier. Like imagine starting a car company or something like that. Like, there's pretty much zero upfront investment. It's a service. You can mess up a lot. It's relatively lean, so there's a lot of benefits. Um, you have location freedom, you have time freedom, stuff like that. But you still need to. It's still not easy, Like, but as businesses go, I think it's relatively on the easier track.
Okay, so where can the viewers find you?
The viewers can find me at our company at Taurify, Instagram, YouTube, all that stuff, or my personal Cayleb Pletos Instagram. You can check me out. Um, that's where you can find me. Or you can check out our website at taurify.com. Look at some of our clients, see what we've done. Um, if you guys ever have any questions, shoot me an email. My email's on there. So that's gonna be where
Okay,
you
and I will
where you
make
gotta
sure
find
to
me.
add your links to the description so anybody can find it. So it was really nice talking to you. Thank you for coming on the show.
Yes, of course. It was a pleasure. I hope you guys were able to find at least one little nugget of value here. And you know, I'm excited to show you guys scale up here.
Thank you for watching this podcast. I would like to let you know that I am searching for other SMMA podcast guests too. So if you are an SMMA owner yourself, or if you know any other SMMA owners, feel free to contact me. And basically, see you in the next episodes. Thank you for watching. Subscribe, and I'm really glad to be back. See you on the mountaintop. Bye.